Sometimes the workings of the human mind lie too deep for us to fathom. And the mind is no less mysterious when its delicate equilibrium has been upset and been plunged into the abyss of mental handicap.
Go to the new building. Yes, how when we go to the new building? We'll have another one we go to.
But among such unfortunates are a very few individuals who possess extraordinary abilities, which, given their mental impairment, appear to be theoretically impossible. An astonishing musical memory in a young man so handicapped he is permanently institutionalized. Elsewhere, at a special school in London, is an 11-year-old boy with a mental age of 6, but with the skills of a mature artist. And there are other mentally handicapped people with a more bizarre but equally extraordinary talent.
The 6th of January, 1945.
About Saturday.
What about the 12th of June, 1918?
About Wednesday.
Very good, David.
The question of how so-called subnormal people can have such extraordinary abilities has intrigued two Medical Research Council psychologists, Beata Hermelin and Neil O'Connor.
They appear to show an ability which is contradicted by their intelligence level, and this presents us with the problem of how to interpret what intelligence means.
One of the first psychologists to study these gifted people was a Frenchman, Alfred Binet, and the name he gave them a century ago has stuck.
Binet calls these people idiots savants, which really means something like the foolish, wise ones. Now, words assume different meaning in different ages, and we don't call these people idiots anymore, of course. We call them mentally handicapped.
These are some of the permanent residents of a home for autistic people in Somerset. And the morning sing-along is led at the piano by one of them, 23-year-old Noel Patterson. Head of the centre is Robert Reynolds.
It really is an amazing ability that he has. And this is exceedingly unusual when measured against any other area of his social skills or social functioning, because it's so far in advance of anything else he can do.
Do you remember what you're doing?
Yes. Scarf.
A scarf. Who's it for?
Shop.
We'll put it in the shop, shall we?
Yes.
See if we can sell it.
Yes, please.
That'll be nice.
Officially, Noel Patterson has an IQ of 60, a mental age of 8, and he tends to be treated as such.
Light blue.
Dark blue. White stripes.
Well done.
Noel has been diagnosed as autistic. That means, in addition to his speech and communication defects, he has severe problems of comprehension and a lack of awareness of others. Often, he's shut in his own world. He needs almost constant care and supervision, and yet the person who can hardly wield a saw can do this.
understanding is that it's totally a memorizing and recall process. There are still some puzzling areas. How does he learn where all the notes are on the piano and on the guitar? He appears to have instant recognition of note pitch and value, so that if he hears a tune, he will replay that tune in exactly the same key without having to test it out.
Because he's not capable of reading music, he learns all of it by ear. Given his handicap, Noel's obviously extraordinary, but how does he rate to a professional? We asked Anthony Hopkins, the musician and composer, to give an expert opinion of Noel's musicianship.
Well, I think that's a very hard piece. In fact, I've always balked learning it. But Noel's performance, considering that it's about grade 6 at the very least, and possibly more, is really quite impressive. I mean, it's not a very musical performance, and I can't say that there's much of himself involved in it. But the way he actually gets round the prelude is quite impressive, because it is very awkward. It's got difficult corners on the keyboard, and he copes with the different modulations and so forth very, very, very soundly.
But what about Noel's ability to memorize music? We asked Anthony Hopkins to compose a brand new piece for Noel to learn and play. He recorded the piece on tape, and we played it to Noel in the way he often learns music, in short chunks. This was his very first attempt.
Try it now.
Now, just how good was that? We asked Catherine Johnson, a bank clerk of the same musical grade as Noel, to try learning the piece, like Noel, by ear. Noel had only to hear the piece 3 times to produce an almost carbon copy performance.
really was impressed. I think that to hear the tune itself is not so hard. You know, the tune's fairly catchy, and it has much the same shape all the way through from the point of view of the rhythm. But to hear it in depth, to be able to put the right harmonies underneath was, I thought, really impressive. Particularly, there's one little twist I put in the middle. I won't say it was a trick, but I didn't expect him to get it right, this bit. And it's the sort of thing that could stop someone in their tracks, but actually got that right first time. And the other harmony I didn't expect him to get comes at the climax of the tune, when it gets to this chord. And I put in what we call a ninth, which is this extra note, that one there. And I didn't think he would get that, but he spotted it the very first time. What he did was a pretty well exact, shall we say about 78% accurate transcription of what I had done. And from that point of view, it really was remarkable.
For the psychologists, talents like Noel's are a real puzzle. Dr. O'Connor.
His capacity to remember music was surprising, would be a mild word to use, against the background of the fact that he can hardly remember a complicated sentence in English. And our favourite guess at the moment is that these talents are independent of intelligence, because, for example, in the case of Noel Paterson, his talent exists at a level which we think might resemble that of Mozart, as far as musical memory is concerned, but his intelligence is obviously much lower. So we do say that these abilities might seem to be intelligence independent.
Most neurologists and neuropsychologists we have talked to really cannot account for this phenomenon at all, because if one has a brain which is overall damaged, then a specific or a small area of that brain which has remained intact is something which neurologists won't conceive. It shouldn't happen. The idiot savant, according to neurologists, shouldn't exist.
A picnic lunch for a Somerset family. 2 daughters and a 28-year-old son who, like Noel Paterson, is autistic. David Kidd's handicaps are typical: withdrawn, a low IQ, severe speech and communication problems. But he has one extraordinary talent.
Come on, Sarah, let's have some dates. How about Grandad's birthday? 30th of March, 1912.
Be a Saturday.
Saturday?
It is.
What about Grandpa? 25th of July, 1880.
It'll be a Saturday of hell.
Right. The 30th of March, 1933.
It'll be a Thursday.
Right. I think he was about 12 when it happened. He was at his first little autistic unit then. He came to me one day and he asked me about this table mat, about the date on it, and said, was it March? Because it's in French. So I said yes. And so he said, well, that was whatever it was, a Tuesday or Wednesday. I can't remember what he said now. Didn't really believe him. So I couldn't prove that the original date wasn't right, but it's worked out since that he seems to be right every time.
David agreed to let us test him under laboratory conditions. What was the 31st of August, 1985?
It's a Saturday.
That's absolutely right. Let's try another. The 28th of March, 1983.
It'll be a Monday.
The 28th of March, 1983 was indeed a Monday. The 29th of March, 1987.
It will be a Sunday.
That's also correct. If you don't believe us, have a look for yourselves. The 17th of December, 1974.
It was a Tuesday.
The 10th of June, 1917.
It was a Sunday.
The 1st of March, 2044.
It'll be a Tuesday.
There aren't any calendars that far ahead, but it's again absolutely correct.
Don't know how he does it. He can't tell you how he does it. He just says, I know. So we just don't know how, whether it's memory, and if he's memorised it, where's he memorised it from? He's got no copy of these dates anywhere. He's no list or anything anywhere. I don't know how he does it.
Dr. Bernard Yallop is a mathematician from the Greenwich Royal Observatory. One of his areas of expertise is the calendar. We wanted him to show us what system David might be using to work out the day of the week. It appears there are basically two methods. One was developed 100 years ago by a Captain Herschel. It's a complex four-part diagram cross-referencing the day, date, month and year. The other method is mathematical. Some clever chap worked out that each element of the calendar can be given different numerical values. In the months, for example, January and October are 1, May 2 and August 3. The same thing for the years. Mathematically, it only involves simple arithmetic. But to do it in your head, you've got to remember all those different values. Dr. Yallop let us test him out on the system, but not in his head. OK, the 29th of March, 1987.
Well, 29th of March. The 29th as a correction of 1. March as a correction of 4, and 4 and 1 is 5. What was the year?
1987.
1987 has a correction of 3, so that's a total of 8. Subtract 7 leaves 1. It was a Sunday.
Absolutely correct. But let's compare him with David Kidd. The 17th of December, 1974.
It was a Tuesday.
17 has a correction of 3. December has a correction of 6. That's 9. That leaves 2. 1974 is 1. That's 3. Tuesday.
The 3rd of June, 1989.
Is this going to stop sometime?
It will be a Saturday.
3. June is 5. That's 8. That's 1. 1989 is 6 and 7. Saturday.
So we gave Dr. Yallop an extra advantage by allowing him to program the calculations into a pocket computer. Could he beat David now? The 28th of February, 1962.
It was a Wednesday.
Of February. Wednesday.
The 15th of March, 1996.
It will be a Friday.
6. Friday.
The 26th of January, 1928.
1928. Thursday.
It was a Thursday.
I couldn't do it that quickly, and if anyone can do it in their head that quickly, they're pretty good. Hello there, David. I'm from the Royal Greenwich Observatory, and I've come to ask you some questions about the calendar, which I believe you're very clever at working out. I'm curious to know how you do this, so I shall be asking you some questions, hoping to find out perhaps how you do it.
Dr. Yallop wanted to discover what system he was using, mathematics or memory.
Can you tell me what 8 add on 7 is? If you take 8 and add 7 to it.
It will make 14.
8 and 7's 14?
It is.
Okay, it's not, you don't think it's 15?
Obviously, David wasn't using any mathematical method.
In what months in 1983 does the 22nd of the month fall on a Tuesday?
It will be February, March and November.
Right, okay. In what years was September the 30th a Saturday? Can you tell me that?
1978, 1972, 1967.
Can you give me any more years?
For Dr. Yallop, the fact that David could get the right answer, whichever way round the questions were put, was significant.
Yes.
1944, 1939, 1933,
Right.
It meant David had to be using a kind of storage system similar to the Herschel diagram. But if David was using it, he would know, for example, that the calendar repeats itself every 28 years. Take Tuesday, July 29, 1902. It was the same day 28 years later and 28 years after that. It's a simple principle, but had David ever discovered it?
What is special about 28 years? Is there anything important about 28 years?
Isn't.
There isn't?
No.
No. Okay.
Dr. Yallop was flummoxed.
I don't know what system he's using. All I do know is that he's not using arithmetic. He's not doing any mental calculations. He's obviously stored the information in his head and he can recall it very rapidly.
But how much is he memorizing? The theoretical minimum must be the Herschel diagram.
If you add up all the figures in there, that's roughly how much you've got to remember. But to be able to use that table quickly, you've really got to repeat the pattern at least 7 times. So it's 7 times that Herschel diagram. If you could remember that lot in your mind, a 2-dimensional diagram, and look it up, that's about how much work that he's doing. But he's got it stored away, locked away, and knows how to recall it. He's just like his mind's just like a computer, really.
But the mind that can manipulate hundreds of pieces of complex data struggles over arithmetic for 7-year-olds. And IQ tests show David's memory is equally poor. It's a real puzzle, compounded by the fact that David isn't the only mentally handicapped calendar calculator. But the psychologists do have some tentative conclusions. Dr. O'Connor.
They're operating on something that they've acquired in the way that you and I acquire language. We acquire our first language in an unconscious way, so that if we were to ask ourselves what are the rules of grammar in English, we probably wouldn't know them as well as we'd know the rules of grammar in a foreign language which we learnt. And these people are like that with dates. They haven't got access necessarily to the principles so that they could announce them verbally, but they nonetheless do operate them just in the same way as we speak English correctly without actually knowing how we do it.
Jimmy Crackbone and I don't care. Jimmy Crackbone and I don't care. Jimmy Crackbone.
Just as much a mystery is the extraordinary talent of 11-year-old Stephen Wiltshire. At first sight, just another pupil at a special school for children with serious communication and learning problems. During school trips round London, Stephen, despite an IQ of 60 and a nervous tic of unknown cause, has developed an obsession for buildings.
Look at the church. That's the Royal Lancaster Hotel. The Royal Lancaster Hotel. Really? Yeah.
What has amazed his teachers and classmates is that not only does he recognise virtually every London building, he draws them as well. This is Stephen's pencil sketch of the Natural History Museum done at the age of 10.
The Royal Albert Hall.
They keep horses there.
In fact, he has drawn most of London's famous buildings. Astonishingly, some have even been done from memory. Last summer, we arranged to take Stephen to a building he had never seen before. London's most elaborate piece of Victoriana, St. Pancras Station. We wanted to test his memory, so we didn't allow him to make any notes, just simple observation.
What about up this end, where it's curved? You see how it curves around there?
It's curved around that building.
That's right.
Lots of windows too.
Lots of
All
windows.
the balconies.
The balconies, do you remember that, will you?
Yeah.
All right.
He spent 15 minutes in front of the building. Back at school, 2 hours later, he started to draw. Though he'd not appeared to study it, he decided to draw the clock tower. While his classmates' renditions of St. Pancras were what you'd expect from children with a mental age of 6, Stephen's own mental handicaps were clearly no drawback. Although he wields his pencil like a 6-year-old, what flows from it has mature, self-confident artistry. Within an hour, the picture is complete. An astonishingly detailed drawing, done entirely from memory. But just how accurate is it? Well, compared to the actual building, he's drawn it round the wrong way. But apart from that, the dormer windows, chimneys, and the tower are pretty accurate. His tower does have too many windows, but they exactly match the style of the windows on the rest of the building. Beyond the building itself, he's accurately put in the post office tower, and even noticed a crane behind the station. We introduced Stephen to Sir Hugh Casson, one-time president of the Royal Academy, artist and architect. Forget Stephen's handicap. How good is he?
He is a wonderful natural draftsman. I mean, really spectacularly good. What interests me as an architect is several things. First, he's not afraid of complication. The Victorians never left anything alone, as you know. And everything was carved and detailed within an inch of its life. He's not frightened by that. Most children would give up after all these little details. Next thing, I think, is brought out best in this drawing of the Albert Hall, which is his powers of perspective. Now, drawing a big circular building is extremely difficult, and his sense of perspective seems to me faultless. The way this thing actually is round and solid, like a vast great bun, he's achieved it, plus his love of detail. The most extraordinary one of all, I think, is this one. You see, you have here a very simple, rather boring block of offices by the Thames. Now, this is a line drawing with no shadow in it. In order to get solidity, most artists resolve this problem by putting on shadows so you can see the forms. He has scorned this. He just does it by line. And the subtlety of angle, you see, he's got to get into this line drawing, which is pure line, the fact the thing is solid. And the only weapon you've got to get that solidity in is by the skill of your perspective. You'd find it very remarkable to find anybody in your office as an architect drawing as well as that. I've never seen, I think in all my competition drawing, I've never seen such talent, such natural and extraordinary talent as this child seems to have. And it's a great blessing for him, with his disabilities, to have this talent, and I hope he knows he's got it.
So the puzzle. A mentally handicapped boy is possibly the best child artist in Britain. A mentally handicapped man can calculate the calendar faster than a computer, and yet another has an astonishing memory for music. At present, the foolish wise ones have the experts baffled. although the scientists seem to feel there's a small clue in one common thread.
One of the features is a certain obsessionality, a preoccupation, if you like, with one topic, such as calendrical calculating, music, drawing, whatever it is. And this obsessionality may be part of what one tends to use, a term one tends to use to describe genius.
We think we have some ideas of what this might be about, but of course we are very far from explaining it. But then one is very far from explaining the talent of Picasso or Shakespeare. How does one explain that?